Well, Saudi Arabia's king was reportedly the man behind the decision to shelve plans to list up to 5% of the state oil company Aramco on the stock market. A Reuters report suggests there were concerns that an IPO would have forced Aramco to publicly disclose the company's financial affairs. The planned listing was at the heart of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's efforts to overhaul the kingdom's economy. Saudi hoped the IPO would raise as much as $100 billion based on a $2 trillion valuation, which would have made it the world's biggest IPO ever. Analysts say the decision to halt the IPO raises doubts over Riyadh's commitment to modernise the economy and make it more transparent. Well, let's get more on this now from TRT World's editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, who joins us now from Paris. Craig, good to have you back. Well, according to this report, the plan has been put on ice permanently, but officially, at least from the oil minister, it's just delayed. I'm wondering, do you believe it'll eventually go ahead?
Oh, no, I think this IPO is dead and buried. 5% of Aramco was actually, in the scheme of things, a small offering, but it offered a large amount of money to the kingdom. And the reason they were doing it is young Prince Salman hoped that this would alleviate youth unemployment, which is the ticking time bomb in Saudi Arabia right now. 32 to 34% youth unemployment, forecast by 2030, 42%. So this was to fund Saudi Vision 2030, which was going to help create this culture of openness and get the Saudis off their oil addiction and modernize the country. Not going to happen now.
No, I was going to ask you about that so-called Vision 2030, the Crown Prince's grand plans to modernize the economy, as you say, provide jobs for Saudi Arabians. What happens to that? This IPO was going to be the major source of funds for that. Is that plan now on hold?
Well, Saudi Vision 2030 was to a large extent to be funded from the Aramco offering. It was supposed to be the spark that lit the fuse here. And the reason this whole idea got traction is because when they came up with the idea about 2 years ago, the banks and the consultants swarmed into Riyadh to give this whole idea a lot of legitimacy. But privately, they were saying this never was going to happen. And of course, the bankers and the IPO experts and the consultants were happy to take their money. But what they discovered real quick was words like license and regulated were kind of meaningless to the theocratic monarchs who run the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You know, Western concepts were alien. The Saudis did not want to open their books to go through the due diligence that was necessary for an IPO. The way the Saudis went into this, they ignored nearly all laws of an IPO that you need to follow if you're going to do an IPO on a Western exchange. And this was pretty much the result of the unusually headstrong impulse of young Prince Salman, who saw this as the way to open up the kingdom. And the king said, no, we're not going to do it.
Yes, and Craig, just quickly, we also learned today that Aramco has lost its unlimited access to Saudi Arabia's oil reserves. It now has a 40-year contract on them, which is still bigger than most. I'm wondering, is this a sign that perhaps they're leaving the door open to a possible IPO sometime in the distant future?
Well, I've always believed on this deal that they're looking for an investor to come into Aramco. Aramco is the Saudi royal family's piggy bank. And I still say keep an eye on the Chinese here. Keep an eye on the Chinese coming in.
Interesting. Okay. Craig Copetas in Paris. Thanks as always.